You're listening to Somewhat Frank with me, Frank Gruber. After working in the corporate world for a decade, I decided to blaze my own path by co-founding Tech Cocktail, which helped catalyze local startup communities and eventually turned into TechCo Media, a site which grew to millions of readers and was eventually acquired. Over the past decade, I've interviewed hundreds of entrepreneurs and thought leaders from some of the fastest growing and most successful companies in history. And along the way, I've learned amazing lessons from my experiences. So we're going to talk about startups, tech, innovation, and their intersection with personal life, and anything else on Frank Gruber's mind. So let's get started being Somewhat Frank. Somewhat Frank is produced with the help of Established, my new company. Hello, everybody. It's Frank Gruber. Welcome back to the Somewhat Frank podcast. It's been a little bit of a break there. It took a long June, if you will. It's been a crazy time in the world with everything going on. COVID-19, is still going on and flaring up again. And obviously the last month or so has been filled with a lot of emotion. It's been an emotional roller coaster and an awakening for Americans to the fact that all lives matter only once Black Lives Matter. So it's been an interesting time. I'm joined by my co-host, Johnny Goodtimes Guidos. He is a fellow, RV enthusiast. And I think you might even be in an RV right now. Johnny Goodtimes, how's it going?
Hi, Frank. Good. Things are going well. Yes, I am currently in a mobile office, aka an RV, somewhere on the coast, the east coast of the United States. Location to be determined. What do they call it? Destination unknown, which is exciting. And I want to hear more about this COVID-19 flare-up that you're having. Tell me more.
Well, no, yeah, just in general, like the numbers were going in a good direction when everything was locked down, and I think Memorial Day hit and everyone went outside, and all the states that kind of reopened around that same time are now just going out of control. I think we're at about, yesterday was, every day is a new record where we're at new cases at, I think yesterday was around 45,000 new cases. And there's experts thinking that we're going to end up getting 100,000 new cases a day if this trajectory, continues, because it's exponential growth. So, it's just a rough situation. And, they're also thinking that the death rate is actually way higher. I saw a study that said that 35% of, that actually the death rate might be 35% higher than what is currently reported, which is kind of scary. So we're kind of back at square one where we were about 2 months ago, I'd say, and it's a bummer. It's a huge bummer. Obviously, summer's here and everyone wants to go do stuff outside. So
good Lord,
that's great. But I've been noticing the states that are having a hard time are the states that are warmer and maybe people are inside because it's air conditioning is needed. So Nevada and you got Florida and I think California's flaring up again, and they're closing all the bars. Things are happening like that. So,
yeah,
I'm in Maine, and so I think it's okay up here. There's still limited amounts of cases, but my concern is that obviously we're all swimming in the same pool, and if someone pees in the pool, we're eventually going to touch that pee.
Sure. Now that's recently I think that you and I both read that RV sales are spiking, which is
it's crazy.
It's corresponding with this COVID pandemic, and that was my thinking all along was I don't want to I'm used to traveling, I miss traveling, so I went out and purchased an RV, which was actually a plan a long time that I'd planned on doing so, but this is now a good time because you don't want to use public restrooms, right? You don't want to fly on a plane where you could, anything mass or public transit, let's call it, right? So an RV is great because basically all you need to do is stop and get gas, and then at that time you can jump in the back real quick, use the restroom if you need to, and then keep on your way. And you're really the idea is not to be exposed to anyone else's germs or anyone else in particular. And so it's been a nice experience, I got to tell you. And going to a state also where there's a lot less, COVID related illnesses or COVID related cases, let's call it, that's been the idea, and it's worked out well so far.
So you're living the dream.
I am living the dream. Yeah, I'm living the vagabond lifestyle, and I have no complaints thus far, except it's a little tight on occasion.
Awesome.
I have about a 6x6 inch space to make my peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, which is a little rough.
That's great. So yeah, I've definitely been thinking about it. I've been looking at RV rentals. I don't know if I'm going to go all in yet, but looking at that and obviously thinking about what else, what other kinds of things like that could you do that are more localized? And I was thinking about boating is another one. If you are more of a water person and want to get out there, having a boat on the water could be another place to kind of safe haven, if you will, and take the family and hang out and whatnot.
Those alternative things to try to stay away from others and continue on a nice lifestyle are important. So good points.
Yep. So yeah, so definitely seeing a spike. There's, I think I shared an article in the most recent newsletter. It's basically the pandemic spurring the rise of RV sales and even boat sales. So it's an interesting time we live in. You would, if you're think about all the RV salesmen that are out there thinking about this and had no idea this was going to happen, and all of a sudden they're just like cashing in.
Right. Well, historically, whenever the economy has gone into a recession, those industries have been usually the first ones on the front line to get significantly, hurt by all of it.
Cut back. Yeah.
It's counterintuitive this time, or it's kind of flipped a little bit, right? That we're coming out of obviously a few years of having a really good economy. So people still have those, that money saved up so they can go out and purchase the alternative methods of travel, let's call it, right? So interesting stuff. But anyways, we got to keep rolling, Frank. I know one of the things you love to do always is celebrate people in your network.
Celebration.
So it's been a while since the last episode, so I think you have a bunch of people to celebrate this time.
It was May, and there's probably a bunch I missed, unfortunately. I've been trying to keep track, and people are just doing such great things, and there's so much good stuff happening in the world still. So I want to celebrate. So Arlan Hamilton, which I've talked about before, her book just came out. It's called It's About Damn Time. It's a good one. I've got a copy of it. Started reading it. So check it out if you get a chance. Brad Feld, who's a VC and has invested in a number of different companies, has written a bunch of different books, has a new book called The Startup Community Way, which is his latest. So if you're interested in startup communities and how they work, how you can be a part of them and how you can grow them, check out that book. It's a Startup Way is the name of the book. And Meredith Fineman, which I've mentioned before, has her book. It finally came out. It's Brag Better, which is all about how to, better tell your story. I think storytelling is such an important part of life in general. So I think anybody can probably learn from the book and basically learn how to share, what you've been up to without sounding coming off the wrong way, as we talk about our boats and RV problems. Maybe we should read the book. Anyway, so Matt Rissel, who was the founder of T-Sheets, which is a company that he bootstrapped for 14 years or something like that, sold it finally to Intuit for a bunch of money, took a little break, and now he's back and he's doing he's an executive in residence for Summit Partners. So he just joined that team. They're looking at helping startups and investing in companies. So congrats to Matt and for what he's doing and continuing along. He's got so much knowledge, and from growing that team and growing it from zero to hundreds of employees and selling for over a couple $100 million to Intuit. So definitely a good person to have on board to help these other companies. And then Derek Andersen, who is from Startup Grind. He started Startup Grind and kind of stepped back a little bit, but he's also got a company, a startup called Bevy. And there's just been a blow up in the number of people taking events online and doing online activities. So we're seeing that definitely with Established, which we're hosting our own events and helping others host their events. And so he launched a company called Bevy a little while back, and he just secured $15 million to continue to grow it. So that's exciting for him and what he's doing. I can't wait to check it out. It might be a platform you'll be able to leverage for some of the stuff we're doing. And let's see who else. Mary Grove, who was at Google, and then she was leading up their Google for Entrepreneurs program, which is now the Google for Startup program. She left a little while back and joined the Rise of the Rest with Steve Case, and then she just stepped out and is now starting her own firm called Bread and Butter Ventures out of Minnesota, and they're going to be investing in early stage companies as well. So it's great to see more funds out there investing in early stage, and as well out of the Midwest, which is an area that needs more of that. So that's great. Congrats to Mary Grove. This one just came in. Kat Hernandez did also launch her own pre-seed fund model. It's called the Venture Collective. She was at Primary VC before, and she's judged some of our events and been involved in our startup community for a while now. And she's started her own thing. So congrats to them. And it's going to be based out of London and New York. She's got a couple other partners there. And then Paul Carr, who we've known for a while, and as well as Sarah Lacey, who's also involved in this company, just launched Needhop, which is pretty cool. It's a new app. I'll talk about it a little bit more later, but basically, if you need help, you can book somebody to jump on a call and help you with your whatever that advice you're looking for, or life help or life coaching or whatever it is. And so you can check that out. I'm actually on the platform, and if you want to give me a call, you can just go find me and give me a call. And then finally, last but not least, and I'm sure there's people I missed, Don Dixon, who's got a vending machine company, raised $2.5 million via crowdfunding, which is pretty impressive. It's, crowdfunding is such an art, and I think that she's actually a black female founder, and she's able to raise $2.5 million online, which is phenomenal. So really pulling for her and what she's up to.
Yeah, congrats. That's a lot of good stuff. That's what I needed today, right? Is going into the holiday weekend is to hear some good news. Some people,
lots of good stuff. People are just chugging along. Dawn, I should also mention, was part of our Start of the Year program a while back with I think it was a different company, but she's been just crushing out there. So somebody to watch. Remember that name.
Don Dixon. Rolls off the tongue. I like it.
Yep.
Well, good stuff, man. How have you been enjoying your early summer thus far? Have you been reading or watching anything fun?
Yeah, so far so good. I've been trying to get outside more, doing more hikes, played some tennis the other day, golf, like trying to do things close to home, but also be a little bit more athletic now. It's the weather's nice. Definitely been reading a lot, but not as much as I used to, because I think it's interesting, most media these days, like if you look at it, I would love to get a percentage of what percentage is all about COVID-19. And so it's like sometimes hard to find articles that aren't about COVID-19. And, so I'm trying to share a little bit about things that aren't, just related to that. But some interesting things happening out there. There is some new therapy for gene therapy that they're working on, and it's supposed to basically prevent obesity and build muscles. So basically without exercising or dieting. So we'll continue to watch that that experimental gene therapy, if that's going to work or not. They're still testing it. But what would that be? What would that be like for everyone if they just didn't have to work out? They didn't need to go to the gym. They just did therapy.
Sign me up. I'm in on that one.
Yep.
They could use me as the testing, as the lab rat. I'm happy to contribute to that one.
Yep. Yeah, it's good stuff.
What I've been thinking about lately is, throughout the course of my life, I probably read more now than I ever have on my phone or tablet or whatever the case may be, but I don't do as much recreational reading as I used to, right? It's just news, it's content nonstop.
Yep.
When I'd really like to sit down with a book of some sort and just read a little bit more, right? But it is ultimately.
Yeah, I actually got a paper book, like an actual paper book, a couple of them actually, that I've been reading. I mentioned Arlan Hamilton's earlier. I forgot to add it to my list, but been reading that one, as well as How to Read Water, Clues and Patterns from Puddles to the Sea by Tristan Gooley. He's an author that writes about how to navigate. He's both on land or water. And it's pretty interesting. I've been chugging away on it like a chapter a night before I go to sleep. It's nothing, not to say it's tiring to read, but it can be if you're reading about water. But it's interesting too. Like there's a lot of things you can gather and learn from just observing what's around you, and I'm thinking of more from like a nautical perspective, but he's taken on this whole approach of like how the things around you all kind of show that there's water around, or how to actually read what's going on. So
what's been the most interesting thing you've learned about about water?
How to read water? Well, I'm only on chapter like 4 of that book so far, and it's like a bunch of chapters, like 20 some or 30 chapters. So far, just like reading the signs, things like clues in the environment that might lead you to water on land. So like just starting with like things like, and obviously this probably sounds pretty trivial, but like names of streets, like if it has like certain words in it, they're actually old words from like back in the day, like Latin words or whatever, that actually mean water, and we just don't we don't realize it now. And so if you're reading the signs and you're reading some of the birds, for example, certain birds only stay a certain amount of distance to the shore, right? And so certain birds are going to kind of do that. So like there's like certain birds are like 25 miles from the shore, some are going to stay 50 miles. So if you know this stuff, you'll know how close you are to shore. So if you're on a boat, if you're on land, you can also read like vegetation, things like that too. So lots of tricks and tips for reading water. Still learning, and a lot to still absorb, if you will.
I like that. End on a pun.
Yeah.
Well, good stuff.
That's my job. I'm punny. All right. So, so keep going. So let's see, what else have we been, speaking of water, there's, and thinking about things like, I don't know if this is going to fly right now because of not wanting to be in enclosed spaces with COVID, but they are starting to do some underwater tourism, in this, like, basically a submarine that can, take up to 24 passengers and explore the ocean depths, which is pretty cool.
Oh, wow.
Shared an article about that. And, I don't know. I think pre-COVID, I would have been like, yes, let's do it. Now I'm just like, let's wait a second and see how it goes. But
Sure.
there's so much down underneath the ocean that we just don't know about, and it's pretty cool. I think it's cool to check out.
Well, I'll tell you what, I know that you and I work together, obviously, and so work's really been pretty busy lately. You and I were talking. So I know we have some upcoming events coming up. So what you want to tell everybody what we have going on?
Yeah, so we've been doing kind of monthly events to showcase startups and give them a chance to fast track to our Startup of the Year program finals and summit, which is happening in November. So basically our next one, so we just did one that was focused on female founders, and we just did that a month and a half ago. And our next one is actually coming up July 23rd, and it's at 1 p.m. Eastern. We'll be hosting spotlighting U.S. veteran founders. So as part of our .US Startup of the Year program, .US Veteran Startup of the Year program, we're actually going to award $10,000 to one of to the .US Veteran Startup of the Year at the end of the year. We're going to be kind of do this fast track event to kind of try to find and showcase some of the companies that might be involved. So that'll be coming up. You can RSVP online. If you go to startupofyear.com, you'll find out more about it. But that's one of the events coming up. We've also been working with a number of different organizations, more than I can rattle off here. But one that's coming up that's very forward facing is Greater Colorado Venture Fund. Is a fund based out of Colorado, and they invest in startups in the rural communities there. And they're hosting a pitch event, and we're actually helping produce it. So it's coming up July 30th, and they're going to have a bunch of early stage companies there. They're going to pitch. They're going to have the governor involved. It's going to be a great event, and they're going to be investing pretty sizable checks into some of the companies that are coming out of rural Colorado. So definitely want to check that out. I would not miss that one. That's coming up July 30th as well. So lots of events coming up. We're working on lots of moving parts, but we're keeping it together, and we're trying to just help folks as they bring these events online, because there's such a difference between what you do in person. And there was supposed to be a roadshow to begin with, and that Colorado event, and it's been turned into this bigger online event, which has a bigger opportunity for exposure as well.
Yeah, that's going to be a big one. I'm excited about that one. They have some pretty high profile people that are going to be involved with all of that, and lots of good stuff going on there. Yeah, sure. Well, what about, have you guys been watching anything while you've been hunkered down during the pandemic? I know I have.
Honestly, I've been reading more. I've been reading books and trying to learn things. And the only things I have been watching have been documentaries. I miss sports so much right now. Like, I know that baseball is coming back for a 60-game season. That's breaking news for those that don't know it. But basically, still worried about that, because I think it's going to be interesting. Hopefully that they're able to contain the coronavirus and everything that's going on there. But 60 games is going to fly by. And so anyway, in that same vein, I've been watching ESPN documentaries. They put out a couple. The Last Dance, I finally watched the end of that, and just made me super mad at the Chicago Bulls ownership. They literally ended Michael Jordan's career because they wouldn't re-sign their coach or bring back these amazing stars that had just won 6 of the last 8 NBA championships. So, I mean, they literally cut Michael Jordan's career down by at least 5 to 6 years. How can that be That's crazy.
I stay awake at night feeling bad for Michael Jordan and his career. So no, I'm just kidding. He's doing okay with himself.
No, but I mean, some argue he's the greatest of all time, right? But his statistically, he was cut short, and obviously, he could have done a lot more with the opportunity. Sure. And he was fun to watch, right? He brought joy. So I think that's part of it. And he left everything on the field. I mean, he left everything on the court, and his intensity and everything. So I think that was it was an exciting time. It reminded me. So I did like watching it, obviously, because it reminded me of 1998, which was a great time. We we were, youngsters back then.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminded me of that. And then it reminded me of The Summer, which is the other show I've been watching, or your documentary was called The Long Gone Summer, which was in 1998 when Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa, slugged it out to chase Roger Maris for the home run record. So that was another one that was a really fantastic series. Both those are worth watching. That one just made me upset the Cubs didn't bring back Sammy. They basically haven't invited him back since 2004 because I guess there was some mix up with the coaching and he left the game early or something. Who knows? But either way, that aside, the guy brought so much joy to so many people. Like, just let it go, guys. Like, bring him back. He literally was amazing to watch and brought so many people out. Like, how can you just like not invite him?
Oh, I remember going to watch him. You and I probably went together back in '98 when we were at Purdue, traveled up to a game, and he was so fun to watch when he'd run out to the outfield full sprint. And then when he was batting, I remember seeing him hit a home run. It literally sounded like a shotgun when he hit that ball. I mean, he hit it, notwithstanding all of, any performance enhancing issues. He was amazing to watch, and he could hit the ball.
So they did touch on that in the series. Obviously that's now called the steroid era, and people know it. And Mark McGwire has admitted to using, performance enhancing drugs. Sammy has not admitted to it, but ultimately, we all assume that everyone during that era, because they weren't even testing, they didn't even care. Like, Major League Baseball was coming out of a strike season in '95. They needed something to pick them up. And, they ultimately just said, turn their head the other way and didn't have any testing. So these guys were bulking up and just hitting bombs, and so at the end of the day, it did make the sport really interesting because the entire country was watching Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa go at it. And at first it was Ken Griffey Jr. who was going up against, and then Sammy just came out of nowhere. And so it's fun to watch. I mean, Griffey Jr. was obviously another great baseball player, and he lost, potentially, some of these records and things because these other guys were juicing, and I think he might have been the only one that was clean. He just was so talented. So so that's the unfortunate part. And then you got, a couple of years later, you got Barry Bonds, who turned from he was a little bit of a beanstalk kind of player as far as build to like a monster, and he started just hitting bombs. So it was a weird time of baseball. They let it go, and now they're all pretending like it didn't happen, and actually blocking some of these guys from the Hall of Fame and things because of it, which is pretty ridiculous.
Sure. So, Frank, why don't you tell everybody about this Testing 1, 2, 3 app that you were talking about?
So I like to test some things. So I've been testing. So in the newsletter I put out, Frank Gruber's somewhat regular newsletter. If you go check it out, you can go to frankgruber.me/newsletter on the internet, and you can subscribe if you're not part of it. Send it out about once a month, maybe sometimes twice. But anyway, I kind of share things I've been testing. So lately, and I mentioned it earlier, it's called Needhop. It's an app that was created by Paul Carr and Sarah Lacey. They both spent time at TechCrunch and AOL, and Sarah's written a bunch of books, and Paul's written a bunch of books, and started some companies as well. And anyway, long story short, it's a great app for connecting people for on-demand calls. So if you get a chance, check it out, needhop.com. If you want to connect with me, you can actually go to needhop.com/Frank Gruber, or just go on the site on there. But you can connect with people and, get advice on different things. So I think it's a great app. I think it's very, really early stage still, but it's got a great concept. And I like that it's audio. We're on video so much. It's nice to not be on video for a second.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. I'm gonna have to test that out myself, but I think I could probably book some time with you outside of the app, but most people can't. So it's a nice opportunity. But before we sign off, Frank, I know that 4th of July is coming up, and it's a big anniversary for you professionally with Tech Cocktail. I think the a while ago.
Yep. Yeah, we hosted our first Tech Cocktail event back in 2006 in Chicago. We took over a little bar in Lincoln Park and showcased a bunch of startups and brought about a couple hundred people to the yard. And, it was a lot of fun. I think if you search on YouTube, you can find the video. It's a little nostalgic. It looks like it was shot in 1978 for some reason. But it's I don't know why. But anyway, check it out. And so we're coming on an anniversary here of Tech Cocktail, which ended up turning into TechCo Media. And really was the beginning of us doing events like our Start of the Year program. So it's kind of that's the lineage of the Start of the Year program as far as when we started doing those types of things. So anyway, yeah, check it out. Check out the video. It's funny, and obviously I always hold that July 6th date near and dear to my heart. It's been several years, but it'll be a lot of fun to think about and look at some old photos and things. There's so many tech cocktail photos and great memories out there from guys from Grubhub showing up and demoing to folks like Uber and others coming out and showcasing. So
very cool. Yeah, I've been to a lot of those events over the years. They were always a good time, and you're right. It's funny to see how things iterate and change over the years.
Well,
but
yeah, and thankful that we weren't thinking about doing that now, because there's no way I'd host an event like that now with everything that's going on in the world, right? So I think eventually we'll get back to that, but right now going to a bar or whatever is not it's probably not the best idea in the best interest of your health.
Awesome. Well, good. Well, happy 4th of July to you and all the listeners. And
happy 4th of July. I mean, it's going to be a weird one. I don't think that we're having fireworks this year or anything like that. So everyone just stay safe. Be careful if you're trying to do your own thing with that. And everyone be well out there. It's been kind of a crazy year. We're halfway through. We're halfway through the year. We can do this. We can get through this together. So thanks for listening. Thanks, Johnny Good Times, for joining. Enjoy that RV. I hope you're having a blast out there. And head my way if you can. If you want to maybe go fishing or something.
Sounds like a good plan, Frank.
Stay safe, and please, 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 please wear a mask if you go out in public.
Well, that's a wrap. Thanks so much for listening. This is Somewhat Frank, signing off. Frank Gruber. Oh, and don't forget, subscribe online, iTunes, SoundCloud, Android, wherever you can find it. Somewhat Frank Podcast. We'll be back soon with another episode. Thanks so much.